We've had a trader by the name of Scotty bring to our attention that we were making price down here. What I am going to do in the MMT platform here on the video is I'm going to hit this yellow button right there, and it's going to populate everything that I need. As it's populating, you can see the gauge is changing. It's going to go through a historical reading, and we're going to find out we made price in the brain already. And what we're going to do here is we're going to see if this populates correctly, these yellow dots. That's all the historical data populating in the brain. And the brain just so happens to be this part of the video right here. And we're happy to say that it's in market maker trading application, and it's only used for people that are MMTs. And basically, price was being made down here. We're going to pull our info panel up so we can see where the half bars are in the bottoming process. That half bar there is 43.15. Half of this bar here is 143.18, and we have to have a closing price above that bar. Okay, and in order for that to happen, this is going to happen right here. Let's get this part in the video only. We're talking about 43.18. We're talking about the intraday range has got to go north of 15. This is a 369 bottom based on our system of this being between 0 and 5. You can clearly see in the info panel it was at 4. That was the low of the day of the equity at 43.05. Okay, mind you that the high of the equity was 43.90. So once again, the live entry that we're getting down here is based on adding more shares based on this intraday range. That's down here in the info panel. Now another thing that we can do is we can even zoom in on these bars just to right there. And we can take the brain part off because you know that you got to stay above 15. And that's right here in the video. And here are the 3-minute bars, and here are the calculations that you have to, this body has to stay above here when you're putting in that bottom. And that intraday range, you want it to stay north of 15. We're going to come back to it. We're going to scale that bottom 369. Remember that this is the part of the equity where the equities were at their highs. They made that low, they bounced, but they finally made the low at 0 to 5 right here off of that correctional movement. Is that was just a trade. When you broke below half of these bars, you put in a bottom at 0 to 5. Right now we're north of 15. We got to get north of 25. We want to hold this support level, half of that bar right there, as it's a very, doesn't move a lot, this stock. So we want that bar to be held. Right now, let's take a look at the current bar in the system. And let's take a look. Okay, we know what these half bars were here. We know where this half bar was. So we got a 3-6 minute bottom. We've got an attempt. We need the intraday range right here to run north of 25. And there's a 369. And I'll pause the tape. On Dendrion 3-minute chart. Today's date 9/21/2010. Here's the time. FOMC meeting happens at 2:15 Eastern time today, and basically it's about the MMTs using the SMF platform. It's a market maker platform, so the market makers made money on this side of the spread early in the day. They got the spread down. Now they're going to walk this bottom back up, but certain things have to happen in the SMF system. So basically, once again, that's a small order that's scaling the bottom of the order. Here we go. We had orders down below the marketplace in our system, and we were able to pick up another 200 shares at, I think it was 90 pennies at the low in here, and we're making price in here. Once again, the intraday range part is at 0.5, and so we're going to put a bottom in. As the zero is being put in, it's very informative to understand that price, that the longer we stay at 0, the weaker that the zero bottoming process will be. It needs to bounce from 0 like 2.5 and then back to 0 to confirm the lower prices. So basically, the longer we stay on 0, the weaker the bottom will be. We got to go up to 5 in the indicator. That's how this little 3-minute bar, whoops, let me get it in the video, I'm sorry. That's how this 3-minute bar went down in price. Right there. And the intraday range has got to finally confirm it when you're off the 0 mark and running up toward 5, 7, 10, and so forth in the intraday range. Otherwise, price will remain weak in the cycle of the 3-minute bar. Basically, we are hit down here at the lower end of the range. Once again, though, the brain itself on an intraday range percent is that you have to put in that low. And you can't, when you stay at 0, that's why anytime you ever stay at 0, you're not going to be at the total bottom. That's why we always like to scale these below the marketplace. So it's when we get very well above 15 here, we will come back up. That was where we dropped right down in here now. But we were 0 all the way through the bar. You see 0? Plus we were 0 right there. It tells you right here in the video. Let's make sure this is in the video. That was still at 0. This was still at 0. So when that was at 0 and this stayed at 0, that's why you didn't stop. Once you're at 0, you got to bounce at least a 5. That's what you're currently doing right now. You're at 6. That's how prices get stable. Okay? But when you stay at 0, you can go a little bit lower down to these other teeny lines right to this penny. Remember, a teeny on this is only 4 pennies. So basically what the traders are doing here right now is that it's 38.21 teenies there, but right now the teeny value is 8.36. That's only 34 cents. When you were up 38 teenies, that was $1.60 there. So basically, in order to put in a bottom, you've got to work up off of that 0. So once again, recap. If I stay 0 right there, it's in the info panel. Then if I'm still staying 0, until that 0 reading gets at least a 5 on a turn, you will go down in the teeny range. And that's what was on there. So people can understand that when you throttle at 0, you can go a few teenies below the market, but then that's where you scale back in the trade. So here we are. We finally put in 0 right here. And we put in that 0 to 5. Okay, and we bounced 0 to 5. We took out half of the bar. We're on the uptick. We need to hold half of this bar now. Okay, and you can see the long term. You can see where the trend is now. In the middle here, if it'll fit in this video, because this is a much bigger application, you can see where that trend started down. It popped and it's finally down here. And basically that's where we're at. And that there was 0. That was 0. And finally, when you popped off of 0 here to 6, 0 to 5 is when you start getting confirms put in. Here you could never confirm it because it stayed 0 and it stayed 0. It never bounced. Here it went from 0 to 6, and right now we're at 15. We're at 15 right now. Watch. The brain will